Passava agora então para a seguinte intervenção por parte do Dr. Bjerre, do Instituto de Copenhagen para Estudos Futuros, que fizesse a sua intervenção também focalizada neste tema do futuro da construção. Muito obrigado. Just do it from there.
Yes, good morning. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. The future of construction materials, new construction, renovation and sustainability. It's a long title. I'll not talk very much about renovation and not about city development at all. There are many themes you could have under this heading. I'll just, start where I'm from. Copenhagen Institute for Future Studies, which was an organization founded in 1970, working about long-term trends and scenarios. What can the world become? What may happen? Various alternative scenarios. Working with governments, with corporations, with associations for strategy of today, tomorrow, the next years. So it's about the future, but also about going back and seeing how can we use it now. Also, I have a background as an economist. I work in the Euroconstruction, Danish division, making economic forecasting for construction. But that's not today's presentation. Since I'm from Denmark, from Copenhagen, you could expect a lot about windmills, and you could expect a lot about energy conservation, because they're sort of some of the main focus areas. We have a lot of city development, which I worked a lot with, and then of course a lot about bicycle lanes. And I was really planning to show you a picture of my bicycle, because that's very important for city development as we see it. In fact, I'll show you a picture of my house. There's a problem here. Okay. Imagine that roof stretching all the way down. It's a picture of my house. My house is from 1913, mine and my wife's house, I should add to say. It's a very nice house in many ways, but some years ago that roof got a leak. And now those tiles are standing in a pile next to the house, and I have this new roof, which I hope is clear. It's not very clear here. It's a sort of zinc-clad roof now. Why? Well, why did we have to spend 20,000 euros? Because those 1913 tiles did not tell us they had a problem. They were leaking, and there was a wooden structure below, and you had to remove the roof and do something to the wooden structure, and it took a long time, it cost a lot of money, and so on. And then my question to you, materials producers, why didn't the tiles tell me they had a problem? They could tell my wife if they didn't want to talk to me. I mean, that's okay, no problem. Why didn't they tell us? We could expect things to give feedback. Increasingly, we expect things to give feedback. We have computers, we have more and more automated systems. This is a trick picture of a driverless cars, but driverless cars are coming. We have sensors everywhere, cars that can move around in traffic without a driver in them. We can just sit there and read or do something else. I'm not sure what that means. Okay, the battery is low, but
means you can stop.
I hope somebody else will fix that problem. The point is, technology is moving fast, except battery technology, I'm sorry, and construction. In a car, you have a control panel. If your car has a problem, not a driverless car, but the cars that most of you have, there will be a red light showing we have a problem. My house did not have a red light. It doesn't have all sorts of feedback mechanisms. And why not? Well, it's an old house, but also because IT and sensors cost money. The point of this presentation is that increasingly, sensors and IT do not cost anything. We are moving towards a future where sensors and IT systems and communication is essentially free, cost very close to zero. So expect it to be everywhere, smaller, cheaper, faster, more powerful, communication, integration, big data-based learning systems. The houses can communicate with each other and with the database, and they can be run optimally by the database if they have the sensors. That's depending on you, the material producers and so on, to include the sensors and the communication systems. So expect sensors in building materials and IT in construction and real estate. I mean, it's there. We have IT in construction and real estate, but much, much more of it, giving a huge boost to productivity. Less errors in construction because the materials can give feedback, telling us about preventive maintenance, so I could have saved the 20,000 euros for my leaky roof, because it would have told me, there's a small leak, you need to get it fixed now, instead of waiting till the rot spreads. Saving costs for energy, saving other resource costs, because the building can optimize itself. Knowing how the building is used can help in the design of future buildings. Architects and engineers are very good, but they could get even better if they knew exactly what was going on in the houses they had already built and see, okay, nearly everything works perfect, 99%, but 1% there, we can fix it, we can do it even better in the next house. That requires perhaps more knowledge how the present house is being used. And then, of course, with more knowledge integrated in the building and the materials, dismantling and reuse possibilities could improve too. So I expect, well, the roof tile of 1913, if I go to my local shop and buy a new roof tile, it's exactly the same as 1913. As it happens, my mother's father was a bricklayer, and he would be putting on roof tiles and bricks, and they are the same today. But in 10 years' time, I would expect them to have water and fire sensors. Why not? You may have some technical reasons and some economic reasons. The point is, it becomes cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. So, as a user, as a consumer, as a futurist, I would expect this. I would hope for it. I would hope for a lot of other things. I would hope not just for IT in building materials and communication. I would hope for better insulation. I would expect greener building materials. I would expect self-cleaning floors, self-cleaning windows. We'd love that in our house. Face-changing materials. There's a lot of other things you could focus on too as the future. My point today, my focus today is this one about sensors and communication. That getting feedback from every building material in the house, integrating it into a system for the house, and using it to improve operations. And of course, well, maybe not in 10 years' time, but then in 15, not just having the water and fire sensors, location sensors. When you're building the house, this tile, you're moving it, I don't want to go here, I want to go somewhere else. The tile will give feedback to the worker or the robot moving it and saying, no, this is not as it was designed, I should be somewhere else. So expect an intelligent building system for the construction and also for the operations phase, and for that matter, for the demolition phases. So smart houses moving 10 years ahead from something, well, it is more and more integrated, but if you look at the overall buildings today, it's still like it's an afterthought. We have a tradition for how we build houses, and we do it more or less the same way. There's some automation in modern houses, or some modern houses, this one, for example. But a lot of the time we add sensors and systems to existing buildings and integrate some functions. And what we should move to in 10 years' time, smart houses with a sort of life cycle integrated systems, covering the whole life cycle of the materials and of the buildings. You can follow each brick, each tile, each window, each actuator opening and closing the windows, whatever, see the present status, see what materials were used, how can we reuse it, and so on. To have an optimal build, operate, demolish, recycle cyclus like that for that. Along that, how to integrate that on-site, perhaps it's from on-site construction to more larger modules being produced in factories and so on for cheaper and easier integration. Why should we do this? The futurist says it, and it becomes cheaper. Yeah, but well, okay. Financial and resource economy are linked, of course. It costs money to build a house, and it would cost even more with a lot of extra technology, yes. But building costs are maybe 20%, and operation costs are maybe 80% for a house. That is sort of the typical case in my home country, Denmark at least. And the financials of this is if you spend maybe 5% more and you gain or save 10 or 20% more, it's a very good business to spend a bit more money for the construction and then get very much more efficient operations. And hopefully also better service for the people living in the house. Because part of the smart house concept would be, yes, it can see where I'm going and switch on the light and heat up the rooms when I need them and so on. That's a different discussion perhaps. Learning system of houses with the same system that, of course, materials producers learn, builders learn, but if we had better feedback from houses, not just feedback when there is a problem, because that's what we have today. When something breaks down, we call the builders or maybe the material producers and say, there's a problem. And hopefully there's feedback, we should have done this in a different way. But if you integrate more IT, you can have real-time feedback. You can have feedback much faster. You can have feedback before something breaks down, before things go really bad. You can have better preventive maintenance, of course, but also say, okay, we can change the design of this component sooner if we have feedback sooner. And of course about environmental sustainability, well, less errors could save costs and materials and so on, preventive maintenance, save energy, better reuse, plenty of arguments that way, plenty of savings arguments. Why not? Well, if it's so good and so easy, why is it done already? It's always a very good question. I'm saying it will become profitable. I'm a futurist. I talk about the future. I say the next 5-10 years maybe. It's not profitable yet, perhaps. But the point is, just as computers like this one become cheaper and cheaper and cheaper and can do more and more and more for the same amount of euros, the same applies to sensors, to control systems, to everything else. We can do more and more with less and less cost in the future. Photovoltaics, so they are self-sufficient with energy and for running the systems and so on, cheaper too. What it does need is integrated systems operating the building, basically from design and construction to demolition. Because having systems which have intelligence in the components is no use if it's not fed back to a system which actually uses the information and does things better. Which means that the business model of buildings and real estate might have to change. Because to have an integrated system all the way, we should maybe move from buildings for buying and selling. We build a house using more or less standard technology and we build it and The developer pays for it, and investor buys it, and it's operated, and another investor buys it, and so on, to a system where one company has life cycle responsibility. We talk about life cycle responsibility. How should we organize it? What's the business model? Maybe a house should stay within the ownership and operation of one company for the life cycle. And buildings essentially become non-tradable goods. That's an extreme version of this scenario. I'm not saying it will go like that, but it's a possible consequence. To reach this ideal of maximum sustainability with less environmental footprint, with an integrated learning system for the full life cycle. Who will do this? Well, companies all over in Europe, in the United States, in China. If we do not do it in Europe, somebody else will do it. And they'll come here and they'll eat our lunch. I think. So I think we have to develop it. But how? And I've just developed sort of two different visions, two different scenarios of how this could work. One is what I call the iHouse, inspired by the Apple Corporation's naming conventions, a closed system. You know, with Apple, they make excellent products, but they connect best with other Apple products and sort of have their own standards usually. Closed collaboration systems, things done top-down with moving towards total corporate integration. So in a world scenario like this, we'd have a few large actors. One apple, a red apple and a green apple, or whatever they choose to call themselves, but different companies with sort of one company's building system and information system and so on, and another one with another information system, construction system, operating system, and so on, and a third, but a few large ones, where basically you are in or you are out. Another model would be like, we could call it WikiHouse, based on Wikipedia, you know that, with a lot of collaboration. Everybody can join, or it's more like the Android phones rather than the iPhones, that many companies can join. You can develop software, you can improve, you can make other models yourself, have a system with open collaboration, many actors, sort of bottom-up development, input from many sources, share info. In that case, houses may remain tradable, you'll have flexible collaboration, you can have many small actors who are competing or partnering or shifting alliances. And of course, looking at the future of building materials producers, these are very different worlds. Will it go one way or will it go the other way? Will it go towards a closed system where if you're not part of the system, then you're out? Sort of you're part of that group, or you're part of that group, or you're part of that group, or you're out. Simply. Closed down. That's one future. Another one is the more open one. Which way will it go? I don't know. I see both as possibilities. If we look at the world of mobile phones, we see those systems coexisting. We both have the iPhone with the closed, and we have the Android system more open. But maybe someday one of them will win. We shall see. That's all I can say. For building renovation, well, one scenario, there'll be more and more of it. Another one, competition, new houses. If what I'm saying is right, and I'm not sure, you're never sure about the future, we could expect to see a future with 10, 20, 30-year life cycle for new houses, with full reuse of materials, remanufacturing of materials, which could be optimal in a fast-changing world. If reuse of materials works well, then why should buildings stand so long and look like themselves? Why shouldn't you just reuse the materials if you can do it efficiently at low cost? So we might move from a world where we repair old houses to one where we simply reuse the materials, reuse manufacture. There are a lot of existing houses standing around, and I hope smarter building materials should make renovation better and cheaper. What I would expect for my old house with its problems is that I could, instead of going to the building market with materials, standard materials, increasingly ask for tailor-made components. To have the engineer or technician come to my house, take the measures, and then develop something which fits exactly. More and more do that. But I would expect also the competition from a more efficient system of building and operating new houses to become stiffer. Competition from new houses to become harder. In any case, the pressure to deliver smart, intelligent, whatever, call it what you will, building materials will grow exponentially and exploding 8 to 10 years from now. And of course it should be environmentally sustainable and all that, too, green, friendly, everything else. My focus has been different in this presentation. How sure is this? How certain can we be? Is it in 8 or 10 years? Sorry, I don't know. I know I'm sure of the direction. Things will move this way. Will it be the more open scenario or the more closed scenario? I don't know. I am unsure, simply. But one of them will happen. How soon? I wrote this because it looks better to have a figure, 8 or 10 years. Then it will explode. Can I be sure? Could it be 12 years? It could be 12 years. Could it be 30 years? No. That's too far ahead. It's within a sort of foreseeable future, I think, because the technology is moving so fast and it's becoming so much cheaper. But exactly when? Don't know. So, that was me. Thank you.
Se houver alguma questão, queiram colocar. Embora com o tempo apertado, temos sempre aqui lugar para... Esta é uma questão muito interessante, enfim, a questão de para onde se evolui. Penso que a colocação dos dois cenários é interessante. O que o mundo nos tem ensinado é que todos estes cenários coexistem e possivelmente iremos ter a diferentes evoluções, a diferentes velocidades, mas de qualquer forma penso que foi uma palestra muito interessante pela forma como colocou a questão e a forma como os grandes atores e os pequenos atores podem encontrar enfim, um espaço para desenvolver os seus trabalhos neste contexto do mercado da construção. A própria, digamos, aquilo que o inspira a afirmar sobre o inevitável caminho é um pouco também fruto ou afetado por aquilo que tem sido as recentes diretivas em termos da União Europeia, que de alguma forma apontam, digamos, este caminho e reforçam a ideia de facto é preciso integrar cada vez mais as soluções. Isto certamente não competirá a cada ator ou a cada empresa fazê-lo para o seu próprio material, mas evidentemente esse esforço será necessário, mas haverá a necessidade certamente de uma integração de sistemas para não ficarmos rodeados de uma galopante rede de ICTs, não é? Portanto, aqui a integração, este conceito de ter uma casa e materiais que nos deem o feedback é muito interessante, e aqui a integração passa também pelo papel que os arquitetos e os projetistas têm nesta capacidade de trazer estes sistemas abertos e fechados, rodeados pela inevitabilidade do mundo que cresceu com uma componente de facilitação que as ICTs nos trouxeram, não é?